Welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. We're at episode 32, and this one is a very special one because we are turning the mic over this time to you, the listeners, because we asked for your Twitter questions, and we're going to have a listener special today, and we're going to answer your deepest, darkest questions. I'm Ryan Sir. Along with me always is my co-host Don Helbig. Don, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Ryan, I'm really excited about this episode because without our listeners, we're nothing. So it's great to have them asking us questions. We'd like to see a lot more interaction with our listeners. So, if they're following us on our different social channels, there's a way to stay in regular contact with us when we're not doing the podcast. But we want to, reciprocate that and have it go both ways. And tonight's the start of all that.
Yeah, absolutely. For those of you who don't know, we were tweeting out asking for questions from our Twitter handle, attractions_GRP. And since I'm doing the patting on the back plug, follow us on YouTube for the video version. I'm getting to be a better editor and I make motion graphics now, and I don't want them to go to waste. So watch the video version. But if you'd rather listen while you're driving or whatever, which I admit I do sometimes, follow us on your favorite podcast apps. Just search for the Attractions Group Podcast. All right. So what we did a few days ago is put out a tweet saying that you've got questions, we've got answers. And, we've had a lot of fantastic guests on the podcast the past couple weeks. We had Elizabeth Ringus, the president of ACE, Chris Roberry from the National Roller Coaster Museum, just all sorts of just fantastic people. Not to play anybody down, but all of them were fantastic. We've had some great episodes. But we wanted to take this one back a little bit, take it easy and just kind of spend some time with you guys. Um, Before we get started though, Don, how was your week? It was Super Bowl week.
It was Super Bowl week. I thought it was a fantastic Super Bowl, one of the best ones that I've seen. I know there's a lot of complaining about the referees and all that kind of stuff. That had nothing to do with the outcome of the game. The Eagles had a 10-point lead at halftime. You got to be able to hold that. But, Kansas City, made more plays. They made the plays when it mattered. And, so it didn't come down to that final field goal. And I just thought of, all the Super Bowls that I've been watching, and that dates back to 1972 when the Miami Dolphins had their perfect season. So I rank it up there as one of the two or three best Super Bowls that I've seen. What about you?
So I did not watch Super Bowl. I did catch the end, but I realized that I had an activity to go to that night. It was scheduled before we realized it was Super Bowl Sunday. My girlfriend took me out as a late birthday gift, and when we realized this during the Bengals Kansas City game, I instantly became a Kansas City fan because no matter what, I could not miss this. So if the Bengals had gone to the Super Bowl, I
Yeah.
would have not been able to watch. So selfishly, I'm a little glad they didn't go, because I would have watched it very intently, of course, but it didn't kill me not to watch it. I did catch the last couple plays, with that field goal at the end and stuff, and it's a very exciting game. Wasn't really in a position to check my phone or anything to really check the score, but did periodically, and it seemed like it was always tied. So that's pretty
Yeah.
exciting. But I know that Super Bowl Sunday is kind of like 5 different birthdays and 3 Christmases wrapped up for you. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. Did you
It
just watch it at
is.
home?
It is. And you know what? Yeah, I watched it at home. I like that because I can just focus on the game. We've had Super Bowl parties and that, but I like it with not a lot of distractions, so I can really focus on the game. And Patrick Mahomes, though, I mean, what an incredible talent. Now, whether you like the Chiefs, you don't like the Chiefs, you have to appreciate greatness when you see it. And that's what you're seeing with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, what he's done in his first the last 5 years, either making the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. They've won two. Uh, just respect the greatness. I know there was a lot of years where people weren't fans of Tom Brady, and uh, you know, you have to just appreciate what you're watching. And as a Bengal fan, he's obviously an opponent and someone you have to get past. But I just appreciate the opportunity to watch a guy with that skill level play.
Yep, yep. I couldn't agree more. It's one of those things where, and you and I don't remember if we discussed this on the show or off the show or off camera, but the thing about Patrick Mahomes from I know football. I'm very familiar with it. I don't know it to the level you are. So I'm on the high end of a casual, so like I I understand what's going on. I'm not a Monday morning quarterback, but from that standpoint, just from an amateur standpoint, the thing that I noticed is that on third down, Patrick Mahomes is able to, under pressure, throw for 10 or 15 yards to get a first down. He's able to convert on third very easily. And that was the game changer against the Bengals. I didn't watch the Super Bowl, like I said. I didn't watch a replay, but I imagine there was a situation like that. Was he able to convert on third?
Well, yeah, a lot of those guys that get open for Kansas City, that all goes back to the head coach Andy Reid. He best play designer, play caller that I've seen in the NFL in all my years watching. He just draws up plays that get guys open, and he had two plays when you're in tight, almost goal line situation. It's a crowded area. Just two brilliant calls down there that led to touchdowns. So, uh, you just have to look at it and just respect what those guys have done there in Kansas City. But Patrick Mahomes getting those guys open, it all starts with the play caller
Yeah,
Andy
yeah,
Reid.
absolutely. Formidable opponents. We'll be seeing them again. I got a feeling that it's going to be Joe Burrow versus Patrick Mahomes in many playoff situations moving forward over the next 10 years or so. Let's
Oh,
just hope
absolutely.
that both of them stay healthy and they stay with their teams. It seems like they will. So that's fantastic. Okay, well, enough banter. Let's get to the first tweet. So, by the way, thanks in advance to everybody that tweeted at us. We picked some of our favorites to answer. So, the first one goes to long supporter of the show, FYE Coasters. He also has a YouTube channel, so look him up. Uh, how far in advance does the preparation for a new area or addition for a park start? Like, as far as planning for it? FYE Coasters is at FYE Coasters on Twitter. So, Don, what are your thoughts on that?
I think you need at least a minimum of 2 years to plan. For a new addition anywhere, pretty much in a park. But if it's going to be a major ride like a roller coaster, that can be 5 years of planning when you're looking at an area where you're going to put it. Um, just there's a lot of things involved with it. Your different budgets and things you're working with every year. But most parks are going to operate with about a 5 year plan. Now they'll switch that around a little bit sometimes, but you always know, kind of what you need, how to cater to your audience, and every park's different there too. Some parks are more thrill seekers, some are more family. So you're looking at all those kind of things. But things go on the board. The minimum you can probably get by with, and I'm talking small parks, is going to be 2 years. And the bigger the park, the more time you're going to need.
Yeah, I mean, I know that from experience just with IAPA, it seems like, if you're dealing with your big hitters, your B&Ms and stuff, you need a lead time. Famously, and this is
Yeah,
not an industry secret, this is very public. Rip Ride Rocket at Universal, they had approached B&M about that because they had a vision for a ride because B&M had a similar technology, it's Singapore, somewhere in Asia, where it had onboard audio. And B&M said, okay, we can start in 4 years or something like that, and that's how they ended up with. I want to say Mauer made it. Um, so yeah, it shows that lead time is incredibly important with this stuff. Y
yeah. Now you might not know exactly what manufacturer you're going to work with or what exact ride is going to be there at that point, but in terms of where something would go based on that year, you pretty much have that kind of mapped out. That's kind of where the next new thing might go for that
Yeah,
year.
so the way that I always envisioned it, because this is how it works at, other entertainment areas and stuff like that is, it's very cyclical as far as small budget, medium budget, and so on. But, 2027 or whatever, that's a big budget year. So often coaster, in this industry. But,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, I just,
But the capital idea though, oftentimes before you know the area, where it's gonna
really.
go. So sometimes that comes down to maybe like 2 years out or something like that, or 18 months out where you kinda, okay, this is where it's gonna go, but you have your plan. This is what we're going to do in 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027. So you kind of have that mapped out, kind of the target of what you're looking for at that time. You might not make the purchase yet, have that ride identified yet, have that spot identified yet, but you start talking about it 5 years out.
That's really interesting. 5 years is obviously the cycle that most people have assumed. I imagine. Okay, let me phrase this as a question for you. So 2023 right now, as of this recording, 2028 is penciled in. Um, How much do plans change within the 5 years? Like, is it l I mean
Oh, they do. They do change, yeah. I mean, it might be, maybe you didn't have, a couple of good years or something, and you can't spend what you were thinking of at that time, so you have to kind of pivot and do something else. Sometimes you had a better, couple of years, and now you have more to do some. So, I mean, it varies, on what you're doing, and every park's, gonna be different because, you have the size of a park. Some are, the chains, a Six Flags, a Cedar Fair, a Disney, Universal, and others are more independently owned, family owned, those kind of things. And um, so nobody is working from the exact same playbook. Let's put
Oh,
it
yeah,
that way.
a as is true with all businesses. Um, so let me ask you this, so kind of a variation of that, it seems like, I this is absolutely industry-wide, not unique to any park, but it seems like very recently with the advent of, like, all-season meal plans and things of that sort, that the demand for food has gotten higher. So, they build a new area, they build a new ride, they even build a new flat ride, and, oh, by the way, here's a nice themed restaurant with it. Are additions like that always baked into the cake, or do they like, "We really need an extra 100,000 to build a restaurant?" Like, does that happen?
It's a little, you're definitely working with a shorter window when it comes to restaurants and that, but as the culinary experience, has dramatically improved at parks across the country. It's becoming more a part of the plan, the vision. So you're going to see, I think, more longer term planning for some of those
Yeah,
kind of
and I
things.
imagine that the scale of the project has, a lot more bearing on the time frame. Like, I imagine, let's say Fest House at Busch Gardens, either Busch Gardens probably had at least a 3-year run-in because that was more than $1,000,000 at the time it was built, while, Jimmy's Chicken Shack or whatever, probably they could probably swing that in off season, you know?
Yeah, yeah. If it's a small type of thing, kind of like a smaller kiosk kind. I mean, or just like a walk up one window and order your whatever hot dog and fry, whatever it might be. They're the smaller things. You can do those pretty quick. And a lot of times, you just budget for those, maybe a year in advance, 2 years. But when it comes to like a major ride, you kind of know when you're going to do it. You might not know where it's going to go. And sometimes opportunity comes about and a place becomes available that you weren't expecting because a ride has, been retired and you thought maybe that ride was going to last 2 or 3 years longer and it didn't. So sometimes that creates an opportunity where like, oh yeah, well, instead of putting it here, we're going to put it there, so some things will move too as well.
Yeah. Is there a fair amount of flexibility in terms of, where you can put stuff? I know that that's more of an engineering question than like a marketing question, but I've always been curious if, we're gonna put this on the west side of the park, let's say a mock spinning coaster. Oh, wait, no, it would work better on the right side of the park. Like, to your knowledge, is that like a huge deal?
There's always those, yeah, there's those kind of, yeah, it is a huge deal where you place it. But those kind of discussions, they're typically, collaborative with a lot of different people involved in that. It's not one person picking that kind of a thing normally. Everybody comes to a consensus where's the best
Mhm.
place to put it. But you're also dealing with other things on where to put things because, what about all the electrical and the power sources and all those kind of things? And, is that available right in that area where you're thinking? Is it better to put it over here because it's closer? I mean, so all those kind of things going at people that much smarter than you and I are, Ryan, make those kind of calls, but yeah, a lot of planning is involved. It's not something that you just kind of wing it. Next year we're doing this, and you do it. You can't. You need more
Well,
time than
speak
that.
for yourself. I'm very, very smart, according to my mother. Um, yeah, I mean, you're right, and you kind of hit the nail on the head with like infrastructure too. Because one of the things that really struck me, is there's two different places. There's three different places where I saw this happening. Obviously, my home park's Kings Island. They when they put in Winterfest for 2 years, they did infrastructure. Electric stuff all the whole time, and you wouldn't think about that. You plug in the Christmas lights, big deal. Then when they added the Night of Lights drive-through at Coney Island, also near Cincinnati, lots of infrastructure went in for that. Huge power requirements just for Christmas lights, but there are millions of them. And then I did shot some fireworks at King's Dominion a couple years ago, and they were preparing for Winterfest there after it had opened at Kings Island, and they were in the same process. They're digging up everything, putting down root line, just so much stuff. So I can only fathom, water,
Hmm.
power, gas, whatever it takes. The infrastructure's gotta be astounding for a large scale ride or more so a restaurant, you know? Man.
Yeah. Now let's qualify that tweet as well by saying that, if this question was asked to 10 different people, you might get, five or six are going to say it a different way or something. So, like I said, no parks are the same, you know, um, on how they're going to go about, a lot of these things. Everybody's got a different size, a different budget, that type of thing, and different areas you can put things. And sometimes you have to remove something to add something because you're landlocked. So all those different things go into this decision.
Right, and some of it's long I mean, a perfect example is, like, when Disney has D23, they announce stuff that they forget about later that just don't happen. That's how far out they kinda plan. And on
Hmm.
the flip side, let's use a personal experience for us because, uh, Skyline Attractions, Jeff Pike, friend of the show, hi, Jeff, they debuted their Spaghetti Bowl coaster, and then Six Flags announced a couple months later that they were adding 2 of them. So that tells me I don't necessarily know for sure. I do not have any insight from either company, but that tells me that Six Flags probably bid on it, 6 months before it's gonna open. So for a project like that, that's probably viable.
Yeah, but that would have been something they knew they were getting something. They just didn't know what yet. They knew where something would go. They just didn't know exactly what that capital
Yeah,
was going to
maybe
be.
that's right. Six Flags, they're in a weird situation where their CEO was saying like he didn't want to do capital expenditures and stuff. Then he walked it back. So that's what leads me to believe that maybe they made that decision later. But it's still interesting, because that's something. It's a coaster,
Yeah.
and it's two coasters really for both parks. But they were able to be like, oh, by the way, we're adding this. So that's cool. That's cool that they're able to do that. And
Yeah, but you're always flexible, you're always flexible on being able to pivot and come up with something different. And, maybe something is created that you weren't expecting in terms of an area because a ride
Mhm.
gets retired, that you weren't expecting. So a lot of things get involved, but typically you want to have that, minimum 2 years to 5 years out that you're looking at and with the ideas in your head and where those things
Awesome.
might go.
Cool. All right, let's get on to the next tweet. All right, this is from Jim Flugel. Jim, how responsive should a park be when dealing with social media questions, i.e., weather conditions and rides closed, or any viral content that someone may post, and how to deal with backlash, i.e., catching fighting going on? I remember for a couple years that was at every park, or bad associate involvement. So basically, what he's asking is people start tweeting at the park saying, "Hey, why is this ride closed?" And or the second part of his question is, this employee was rude and I'm tweeting at the park about it, or these two people were fighting. I caught it on video. This is a PR question, not necessarily a social media question, but fortunately, you're also qualified for that. What are your thoughts on it, Don?
You need to be responsive, but every situation is going to be a little bit different. If a ride is down, um, if it's only going to be for like one day, you don't want to really, there's no real reason to put that out there on social media because the way the algorithm and things works, if you post that on a Friday that a ride is down, somebody might not see that in their feed until Sunday morning, and then they think, oh, they don't really read the date that you did it, posted it. So they're thinking that ride's down that day when they were going to go. So you want to be a little careful about that. If it's going to be a long-term closure, you know, 4 to 5 days, a couple weeks, a month. Yeah, you wanna let everybody know, you not only on social media, but you wanna also put it on your website so, you're transparent about what rides aren't gonna be open. But short term, you don't have to, put that out there. You don't have to respond if somebody, it's 10:05 in the morning and I'm here and this ride's not open, why not? By the time you would tweet that, the ride's open. So, but I do believe you wanna be, you do want to make sure that you are responding as when you need to. When it comes to some of those other situations, typically there is a statement, that would be prepared, in case you get media inquiries or whatever, and that same statement would be used to update on social media. But yeah, you want to be as transparent as possible. You want to communicate as much as possible, but there's limitations to when you want to do that because the way the algorithm and things work, it might not appear when you want it to be. It's not gonna be as timely as you think it is. Like instantaneous. Twitter's pretty good. Facebook, with the way the algorithm is. not unless something's going to be long term.
Yeah, I actually remember, one of the parks I follow, I don't remember which one it was, put on Facebook that, "Hey, due to inclement weather, we're closing at 8." And then, I remember seeing that and being like, "Oh, bummer, whatever, happens." And then, like, 3 days later, I saw it again, and I was like, "My god, they're closing again?" And it was the same post, it just showed it to me twice, so if I wasn't diligent, I would think that they were closing at 8.
Right, right. So yeah, you only really do that when you absolutely have to. Um, the best way, one of the best ways to communicate now is through a
Oh,
mobile
yeah.
app. Because you're able to hit your pass holders, you're able to hit the ticket buyers, you're able to hit people that are in the park if something needs to be updated, and that's a much more cleaner, efficient way to communicate. It's more timely, and it's not something that, like you said, 2 or 3 days later you're seeing, you know, that mobile message.
If you wanna see my rant about how parks are underutilizing mobile apps, see episode 2. Yeah, lots of potential with the mobile app. I'm really excited about the future of the mobile app. Uh
Yeah, but the other thing with social media, it's a cauldron of
Really? I
negativity.
hadn't noticed.
So you can't overreact to some of the things, and try to respond to every little thing. And what you also find is a lot of times the people that are going on rants and things, they just chime in and they haven't even been at the park, So you have to just kind of take everything, what it is and based on the situation, some are going to require it, yes, right off the bat. And other times it's, you just have to, let it go and the next day's a new day.
Absolutely. I'm completely in agreement with that. The thing that I've noticed, poking around on social media, and as I've gotten older, I've started to separate myself from social media, and I want to take this moment to thank whatever God there is that I didn't go to high school in a day and age of Facebook because that would be terrible. Um, but there are people that stir the pot worse on social media. There's always the dramatic people in groups. I don't know if they're the same people, but there's always people that are causing trouble on social media and, "Hey, Six Flags Darien Lake closed early because there's a monsoon." What a ripoff. All those people showed up and, come on. There's always those
Yeah.
people. So I completely agree. I think that there are instances where things need to be addressed because if you don't, address things that are serious concerns, then it makes you look non-diligent
Yeah,
and then
exactly, exactly, with that. But, the bigger thing too out there is the consistency of the response. So, um, what's being, delivered to the news media has to be the same thing that you're delivering on the social channels, has to be the same thing that's gonna be on your website. So there's no, you know, differences of what the story is for everybody to kinda add their own, twist to it or take it a different direction. So as long as, everything is consistent across all channels. That's also an important thing when you're responding.
Yeah,
But a
it
great
is.
question.
Let me ask you this, Don, just kind of piggybacking off the question. I've been meaning to ask you this for about a year, and I just haven't seen you, I guess. But so there are some Twitter accounts, professional Twitter accounts like Wendy's and Universal that are kind of famous slash infamous for like rocking the boat and stuff in kind of a playful way. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, it works for them. So I think it has to be something you have to definitely have the buy-in, from top to bottom when you're going to do those kind of things. When you're going to rock the boat, you just can't, go rogue. Because if you do that and everybody else wasn't on board with what your approach was gonna be, you're not gonna be the one making those kind of social
Right.
posts anymore. Someone else is gonna be doing that job for those brands. So, you can have fun with it. I think there's a certain level that, you can take it to, but, you have to be careful because you just can't go rogue and just start taking shots and things like that unless you have everyone has your back, to the person that actually pushed
Right. And
said
I
that
think that
post.
Wendy's always picks on other fast food restaurants, and I think they know what they're getting into. They'll attack people if they say like, "Hey, roast me," which I think is relatively safe if you do it right. Um, at Universal, I think, or Universal Orlando. I don't know if the other ones do it or not, but they probably know the people at the other parks. So, like,
Yeah, I take theirs as more of a tongue in cheek type of thing. We're just having fun. We're competitors here, but we're
mhm.
having fun. almost like the Cubs and the White Sox would with each other, that kind of a thing. Yankees, Mets, so I mean, there's that kind of a environment with it. But just the fire out of left field. I mean, you have to have a plan in place for what you're trying to do there, why you're trying to do it, and everybody has to be on board. And I don't know how you are on your own personal channels, Ryan. For me, I'm very guarded on what I'm going to respond to somebody because that lives
Right.
forever. Once you make that response and your name's
Mhm.
attached to it, so you just have to be really careful. And if you're the one that's making the post for a brand, that brand name is on everything you put out there. So you just have to really be careful and just make sure everybody's on the same page with what your plan is for your social
Yeah,
posts.
I completely agree. Um, excellent thought. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Let's go on to the next tweet. This is tweet number 3, and this is from Coaster Team. Coaster Team, friend of the channel again. What's the incentive to partner with enthusiast clubs? Like offering slightly discounted tickets or maybe some small events once a year? Other than the fact that they're enthusiasts and often groups are notable, are there any other reasons? So, Don, you've obviously had opportunities to partner with several enthusiast groups, including some fan sites that you may do podcasts with the former media director for. What is what's the incentive to do that?
I've been on both sides. Before I started working in the industry, I was in the different enthusiast groups that would have events at these parks and that, and then being at the park and hosting those kind of an events. I don't like to use the word partnership. I would use the word building relationships, maybe not so much with the club itself, but with individual people. So, if you have an event and you have 400 or 500 people that come to it, 1,000 people, whatever, it's an opportunity for people that work at the park to put a face that the guests can recognize. They can, you can have those conversations with them, find out what they like, what they don't like. After these events, these are some of your most passionate from the different enthusiast groups. I mean, they're the most passionate about the industry, about your park. You're putting sales reps out on the street after every visit. Regardless whether you're coming as part of an event or just a one-day visitor. There's advantages with that. That when you have these events, it's not mostly locals. They're coming from all over the place, all over the country. So if you're based in St. Louis, you do an event and somebody came from California. Well, now there's people going back to California talking about what a great time they had at this park. So it's just expanding your reach, your awareness, having more people excited about your product, outside of your market. So there's a lot of value in putting on these kind of an events for the
So
enthusiast
what
community.
about the other part of his tweet when he said about like discount tickets and stuff? I know that a lot of parks offer discounts to like ACE members and stuff like that. What's the thought process behind that besides just creating the relationship?
You look at it as a group sale, a group sale when there's a certain number of a company wants to bring X number of employees, it's going to be lower than the front gate price. So it's looked at the same way as that over the course of a season or whatever, if it's a discount at the, front gate or whatever it is. And say you had 600 people, 700 people take advantage of that offer. It's like a group of 700. So you just have to look at it that
Yeah,
way.
absolutely. Awesome. Great answer. Great question too. Let's do the next one. Okay, so Rich Linville, you don't know him. He's Scoreboard Rich on Twitter. Don, you tweet about two things: sports and theme parks. If you could only pick one, which one and why? So let me hedge this. So, Rich, you didn't really clarify. Is it tweeting about these things, or you had to give up one of these things? So, Don, let's talk about both answers.
Um, let's take it, give
Okay.
up. Let's just put it that way. We'll make it simple. I guess the best way to answer that question is when I die and I'm in my casket, I'm going to be wearing a Bengals shirt, not an amusement park shirt. It's going to be a Bengals shirt, so that should tell you what direction I'm leaning there. If I had to give up one, both of them have been, you know, just ingrained in my life. I grew up with both of them. That's pretty much all I know. So there's always that saying that I don't know much about a lot of things, but if there's two things I know a lot about is sports and the amusement industry. So it's a tough call. I mean, it's a tough way to have to if I had to give up one, but I would stick with sports because um, I played all those different sports that I tweet about. Baseball, football, hockey. You notice I don't really tweet too much about like soccer or tennis or any of those kind of things because that wasn't part of my life growing up. But just a lot of memories with my dad. going to the Reds games and the Bengals games, so a lot of that plays into it as well. So for me, love the amusement industry, but if someone came to me and said, "Okay, Don, you have to either give up going to parks or you have to give up, the sporting events," I'm gonna go to the sporting events.
That's interesting because I think that I'm a different type of fan than you, but I think that sporting events are a lot more fun when your team's a winner. And I think most people think my way. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where if I had to give up parks or, I can go to, if I can't go to parks for the next 3 years, but I can go to all the Bengals games, but they're going to be Super Bowl contenders, like that would be a tough. But if it's like, ask me that in 1995, probably pick the parks,
Yeah, and I've worked in both industries too, so, I mean, there's that piece of it too, and, just being around it on a day-to-day basis, with both, and I look now and I worked in professional hockey for 18 years. I left just before social media, came about, so I think about it now oftentimes, with the things I could have done had we had Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the different ways I could have told the different stories. It was always a struggle to get, the media to cover teams, but you can do the stories yourself, nowadays with all that. So I look at that and I'm kind of jealous of the people who are doing, media relations and social media for sports teams today because I didn't have those opportunities. And I just look at the Reds, the Bengals, across the NFL, Major League Baseball, hockey, and I look at all the stories that could be told by these teams. And I didn't get an opportunity to take advantage of that.
I think you make a valid point there, but I would contrast that with the fact that you got to do it for just imagine if you left a theme
Oh
park.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah, now let's don't get anything wrong here. I mean, I love what I do. I love the being able to tell the stories, and things that I've been able to do in this industry with that. But the question was, if I had to pick one or the other, um, just again, growing up, playing the games, going to the games, uh, reading about it. You know, uh, I think that is why I would lean that
all
way.
right. Well, that question went off the rails. Thanks, scoreboard, Rich. Yeah, I understand, but I still think that you came into social media in the theme park industry at the right time.
I
And I
did.
think that the best you'd really be missing out because it's one thing to tell the story of a team and its fans. It's another thing to tell the story of a small city that everybody loves and everybody wants to come visit. I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, it's not like it's 100% one way to the. I mean, it is a very tough call. It's a great question by Scoreboard Rich there. Um, but both have been such a big piece of my life with that. But if I had to go one way or the other, if somebody said this or that, um, it's going to be the sports and. Um, but I do love, the theme park industry, and you'd be hard pressed to find, many people that love it more than I do.
absolutely. Okay, let's go on to the next tweet. What do we have? We've got from Flyer Jack. When a plot of land is deemed to be used for future development, do most parks know what they want, or are bids put out for different ideas from different companies? Great, great question. So basically, we're going to develop this area. Does the park kind of determine what's going to go there, or do they look at what people offer and then they get sold on it, or do they shop around and get ideas? Is it a mixture? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's a mixture of all of that. Oftentimes, you know what you kinda wanna do if you're gonna open up a new area in that. Um, but something can come about that, you didn't know about 3 years ago that's, the latest greatest, attraction that's out there, and you wanna add that. But yeah, you normally, you have an idea of what you're gonna try to do if you're gonna develop a new area in your park and, what could potentially go there and how does it fit, the rest of the park? How does it fit the skyline? How does it fit, with the themed area that you're coming out of, walking into this new one. So all that goes into it.
How early is the theme of a ride or an area determined? Is that something that you start with a theme and then you build backward, or do you decide we're going to build an area, it's going to have some flat rides, and it's going to be baseball themed?
The theming part of it usually comes later on. the theming part of it, the naming of the attractions, the rides, those are the kind of things that um, normally come last. Like I'll take Mystic Timbers for example. You knew that was going to be a wooden roller coaster. You knew it was going to be in a wooded area, um, but the name came later. It wasn't the first thing there. The Beast, that wasn't named until February 6th. Just a couple months before it opened, with things like that. So the name, the theme, that's often the last piece of the puzzle that you put together, and you have that all finalized, in the months, maybe 9, 10 months leading up to the announcement of a new
Oh,
attraction,
excellent.
with that part of it. But in terms of what it is and where it's going and all that, that's determined way before the name and the theme is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can also, if you pick a theme, I mean, if you do a general theme, space theme, something like that, you could probably pull that. But for a lot of these areas, you kind of got to read the room, and you got to think like, okay, steampunk theme that's out now. So we'll just do something else.
Right.
You don't want to make that determination 5 years in
Right.
advance, because I've noticed that like we're gonna use a steampunk theme, but I'm not necessarily talking about like the steampunk area at any of the Six Flags parks. That's just what came to mind. But I've noticed that, especially in parks like Universal and Disney, if they did something like that and it became passé, they'd be quick to replace it. But at a lot of seasonal parks, it seems like the theme just kind of falls off. Like they don't acknowledge that it has that theme anymore once it becomes irrelevant. And that's not what you want to do. So I think it's kind of cool that it's determined a little bit later. But I think that theming in areas, first of all, it's having a resurgence, which is the greatest thing in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, theming's becoming more important, for when you're doing new attractions. So it's getting a little bit more closer to the time of decision than it used to be. So it's coming about that way where sometimes the theming is more important than the ride experience itself. Everything around it. So um, it's becoming more and more important, but it's still one of the later things that you
Yeah,
get
I
to.
mean, it's funny because the theme it does matter. It really does. Because when we talk about, for example, Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City, and we'll talk about Silver Dollar City during the Pick Six, by the way, for obvious reasons. But um, that's a mock spinning extreme coaster, which is awesome. But it's such a cool looking ride. For me, I really want to ride it, but I wonder how much of that is I wanna see this theme and how much of it is I wanna ride the ride. Because I think it's 60% wants to ride the ride, but 40% like, "I gotta see this," you know? Uh,
Yeah. And the other piece of this too, Ryan, is it is incredibly hard to come up with the right name because you want a name that's gonna, work with logos and all that other part of that. You might have the best name, but you find someone has a
mhm.
trademark somewhere. And there's a lot of research on that, so it's not a simple process, to come up with
Yeah,
a
I
name.
understand. I don't know
So
this for sure. Tell me if you know this or not, but for, every park renames every water park ride, like, every 10 years or so. Isn't there, like, a company that specializes in, like, nomenclature that will name the rides for you or, like, give you options? Have you heard about that?
well, I'm sure that those opportunities are out there to work with different companies and that can assist with, or marketing firms or agencies that can assist with the naming process. Or it can be done at the park level, it can be done at the corporate level. Everybody's going a different direction in how they can determine the names. But it's becoming more collaborative than it
Mhm.
used to be. It used to be as simple as, okay, here's what we're building, let's name it this. And those days are gone. You can't do that. You have to have a lot of thought into why you're naming it that, how you're going to market it because of that name, and how does that going to affect the theming of it all? What kind of merchandise can we do
Yep.
off of that name? All those things go into it. So, something that be as simple as, here's the blueprint, and here's what it's going to do. Let's name it this. 15, 20 years ago, you could do that. Those days are
How
gone.
so vaguely asking you this question, and this is going back to, like, more of your, like, traveling theme park enthusiast kind of days, but have you bought a piece of merchandise just because you like the look of the logo and you didn't care about the ride? Have you ever done that before? Because 'Cause
Oh
I've
yeah.
totally done that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I can name a lot of rides that I've done that with, and I love cool logos. I like, the ID signs in
I
front of rides,
love
I sometimes
logos.
I like that better than I do the ride
Mhm.
experience itself.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, I
so
mean,
yeah,
for
yeah.
example, the, coaster cutouts, I think they're called, the little balsa wood things. I
Mhm.
bought a, Vortex one. I detest Vortex. I've got nostalgia for it, but I didn't like Vortex, but I bought it. That's the only one I own except for the Eiffel Tower because it looked cool. Because well, part of it was
Yeah.
because that's an Aero train, and Aero trains kinda connect me to, like, the feels and, the nostalgia and whatever, but I bought that. There are rides I like a lot more than I ever liked Vortex that I didn't buy because the trains didn't look as cool, and I think that's tantamount to this logo looks awesome
Mhm.
on a t-shirt. Another thing that, that I bought was, Tumbili at King's Dominion when I was out there last summer. I bought so much Tumbili stuff. I bought like a 2 different I don't even buy magnets. I don't collect magnets. I bought 2 of them just because I love the logo and it looks so cool, like made out of wood. Shout out to the graphic design team or whoever came up with that stuff. But I spent a lot of money just because this logo looks cool. Love the ride, but you don't really buy a T-shirt for a 40 spinner, I guess, to be honest with you. But yeah, I mean, I spent money because they took the time to make this look awesome, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, logos are everything to
Absolutely.
me.
Logos and colors and, even the theme and stuff, I think it means a lot. And it used to be so badly done where it was like, I'd almost rather not have a theme when it's like, "Oh, look, there's stuff in the queue, great." But nowadays, like, there's a backstory so often now, it's so cool. Anyway, okay, let's do the next tweet. All right, great question from Dan Stadnick at Dan Stadnick on Twitter. What is your prediction regarding the success of these new mini parks such as Mattel Park in Arizona and the Universal Park in Texas? Great, great question. Don, I'll let you go first.
Well, I think it all comes down to, people like to have fun. They like to do things with their family and friends. They like to be entertained. So as long as, these smaller, um, entities are marketing and promoting that they're there and it's a good experience, I think they can have a long run, a very successful run.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if the I don't want to say the expectations are tempered, but because from a guest standpoint, these are going to be phenomenal. Universal has a set standard that everybody knows, and it's going to be on that standard. You and I have both seen the materials from the Mattel Park at IAPA, and that's
Oh yeah.
oof, dude, that Hot Wheels car or the Hot Wheels roller coaster and stuff. Oof. Anyway, my point
Yeah.
is this. So let me give you an example of my thought process with this. So we got one in Texas and one in Arizona. We're talking about probably super regional parks. Um, so for those of you who don't know the concept of that, if you want to go to Disney World, you have to get on an airplane and you have to fly down to Florida and stuff. But you know what? That's what you need to go to Disney World, and people aspire their whole lives to do that. And then a step down from that is super regional parks. You've got your big Six Flags parks, your big Cedar Fair parks, Dollywood's a little somewhere in there. Um, but when you talk about okay, so let me give an example. So a smaller Six Flags park is Six Flags St. Louis. All right. So it's right in the middle of America. I have not driven to St. Louis to go to Six Flags. That's a long drive for a park that's like, medium sized. If this park opened in if this let's say the Universal Park opened in St. Louis, would you drive 6 hours to go there or 8 hours to go there, Don?
Well, I think that goes back to, you got to play to your market. Know who your audience is going to be, and don't stray from who and what you are. And if you do that, locally or just within like maybe a 100-mile radius of you, you can do pretty well. So I think you just have to focus on that. You don't make it something where you're trying to be a destination place. Just know and understand who and what you are, and then you can have success if you work off of that
I
model.
agree, but what I'm getting at is that I haven't driven to St. Louis because the park there is, medium size or whatever. If they opened a
Yeah.
Universal Park, no doubt in my mind, I would drive out there. And I think that's what they're assuming people are going to be doing in Texas. I mean, Texas is a big place anyway. So this is kind of centralized in Texas, and you can, drive there from anywhere in Texas from 6 or 8 hours away. And then there's Oklahoma and, all the other neighboring states. I think that this is going to be a huge draw. I think it's going to be mega regional. So I think it's going to be probably higher in attendance than most, and it's designed that way than most of the seasonal parks. Uh, if I had to guess, I'd say it's probably going to be a 5 to 6 million park in the first 3 to 5 years, which is probably where they want to put it. That's Universal, not the Mattel. The Mattel one, I don't know, but
That's the one you have to understand who and what you are, and just make sure you're taking advantage of, within that 100 miles or whatever there to come, to that. The, Universal in Texas, it's got a name recognition and all that, which can be a, plus minus because if it's not what everyone was expecting or used to experiencing in Orlando or out in, LA, they're gonna come to this, it's gonna be totally different, geared to a totally different audience, so I think some of that's gonna come into play as well, making sure everybody understands what the product is there.
agreed. I so with Universal, they've been very clear that it's going to be more geared towards children. I don't think anybody would plan a trip there without at least Googling it. We have such access to information that we would know, but I think that there's enough to do for everybody that you could make a few days out of it.
Oh, there will be. Yeah, there will be, and it's, something that, I know both of us, would be, visitors that first year, when it
Yeah,
opens, so, um, yeah,
yeah, that's
great
a really good
question.
question. But I think that the thing that you have to understand is that the parks that are successful, a lot of times are successful because of geography. If you look at the super regionals, you look at your Magic Mountains, you look at your what are some other big market parks? Six Flags, the New Jersey one, Kings Island, Six
Georgia.
Flags over Georgia. Yeah, all of them have a lot of market to pull from, but very little competition in a lot of cases. Magic Mountain's a little different, but there's a lot of
Yeah,
people out there. Uh,
and the other piece of that, Ryan, is how accessible it is to get
sure.
to those places, so it might be within, the right region, but if it's difficult to get to it, that's gonna impact you as
Yeah,
well.
to completely derail the question, that's kind of a testament to Cedar Point because you talk about a park that's not easy to get to. They still draw over 3 million people a year. If they were along an expressway, well, they wouldn't be the same park that they are, but, it's a testament to the staying power of that. But if you look at all the parks built, especially in the park building boom of the '70s, Kings Island, Kings Dominion, Busch Gardens, they're all very easily accessible by the expressway, you know? So
Yeah.
your Kennywood's and stuff like that. Kennywood's another park where it's not very easy to find. They got those arrows everywhere through West Mifflin, trying to direct you how to get there, but it came before the expressways, so that is what it is. But um yeah, yeah, I mean, so I think that their thought process is that they probably drew a circle, a radial circle around where they want to build the park and determined there are 10 or 15, 20 million people in this area. And we think we can pull from them. So for just to back that up though, many of you probably remember this news story that really fizzled out, of the guy that was going to build that theme park ish thing that was also sports complex in Columbus. It was Blue something or another. Met the guy at IAPA. I was trying to solicit some work from him, but I said why Columbus, and he said Columbus is within 8 hours of something like 65% of the US population. And it's like, well, you can't argue with that, you know? So,
No.
and it's funny because sports complexes are really becoming ingrained, sports complexes and esports, because, oh, Billy's got a soccer game, there's soccer tournament here. Okay, we'll go to the park too. That's becoming like a thing. I feel like it was a thing in the past and now it's coming back, you know?
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's definitely coming back, but, to answer his question, though, um, our prediction for success, I'm gonna say, yeah, both would be
I'm
successful.
going to say that the Universal one will be successful. It will continue to be successful. And I think that in the course of our lifetimes, it'll grow to be something that's tantamount to the other Universal parks. I think that they're dipping their toe in the water and they're just going to keep building and building. Maybe even add another gate. Like this is the big kid park, kind of like Epic Universe. Um, the Mattel park, I don't know enough about, but if I had to guess, I mean, like I'd invest in them. That's not investment advice, of course, but
Yeah.
it's they have a good product. They have we saw their trains and stuff of like the Matchbox cars, and those look really cool. So if the rest of the park is any indication, or if that train's any indication of what the rest of the park's going to look at, they're in for a good Thanksgiving dinner. You know, awesome, cool. That was a rant. I apologize to everybody listening. All right.
I think they're used to it by
Yeah,
now.
yeah. I'm sorry, guys. All right. So from at L Lonald P. Dakes, that's Donnie Lakes on Twitter. So he said, "What's your guys' bucket list park and coaster?" All right, Don, take it away. What's your bucket list park and coaster?
Now, is he asking that these both be in the same place, or for different reasons can
I
it be
would venture
separate?
to guess that they could be separate.
Okay, we're being separate. I'm gonna say park bucket list, even though I had been there, but it's been a long time. It's gonna be Fiesta, Texas, because I want to see their 4th of July fireworks show. That was phenomenal. What I saw on video last year just looked great. I don't know, being there on the ground, does it look as good? I don't know, but it looked phenomenal on video. So that'd be on my bucket list if I want to see a 4th of July celebration at a park. That would be my bucket list to hit Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. And for coaster, I'm going to go with Hershey Park Candemonia. I have not been on that. I've heard great things about it, so that would be my bucket list coaster.
Excellent.
What about you, Ryan?
Okay, so let's see here. I would say that short term, my bucket list park is probably Silver Dollar City. I have not been there yet, but I have, I've got a deep love for Dollywood, and I've heard that the theme's even better at Silver Dollar City. So, you know, us talking about, the time traveler there made me start to think about it. So
Yeah.
that's my bucket list park as of right now. Ask me tomorrow, and the answer might change. Bucket list coaster has been the same bucket list coaster for 20 years, and I've just been too lazy to fly out to California to ride X2. I know, it's uncomfortable. Everybody talks about it, but I have always wanted to ride that thing. I've been fascinated by it. I really want to get out there to ride that. So X2, you're my bucket list coaster.
Well, stop making excuses, book the flight, get out there and ride it, Ryan.
Yeah. Plenty of parks out there to visit. Awesome. Cool, cool, cool. All right. Well, we haven't done a normal pick six in such a long time. It's going to feel weird to do it, but we have some exciting topics to talk about. So, everybody, this is Pick Six. So, Pick Six is a segment where, Don and I pick six items from the theme park news and industry and so on, and we discuss them. So, it's topics that we found of interest. And so, let's start with the first one. So the first one takes us actually to Silver Dollar City. Silver Dollar City announced that 2023 will unfortunately be the last year of the famed indoor roller coaster Fire in the Hole after 50 years. Don, have you ridden Fire in the Hole?
I have not, but I know a lot of people that have. Just a unique attraction. 50 years old, every attraction we've talked about this on past podcasts where, eventually they reach the end of the line. But I have to ask, is it the end of the line? Is this something that everybody enjoys their last rides as it has been for the past 50 years on this attraction? Then they kind of like refurbish a little bit and do some different things with it, or is it truly, being removed and something else totally different is going to go in there? Um, for me, it's always sad to see an attraction go, though. Especially one with that kind of a long run of 50 years. But I'm interested to see, what actually goes in there. If it's just, something that's kind of refurbished, rethemed, Um, and it's kind of like, 2.0 of this attraction, or it's just, something that's totally new. But the bottom line is this is your last year to get out and experience that attraction as it has been since 1972. So make plans now to go get your last
Yeah.
rides.
So as all people definitely think, how does this affect me? And the thing that kind of affects me with this, as somebody who has not ridden Fire in the Hole, and I've not been out to
Yeah, we gotta
yeah, you
get the
gotta get the
credit.
cred, man. But so Fire in the Hole is essentially identical to Blazing Fury at Dollywood, and Blazing Fury is one of my favorite rides in the world. And that just terrifies me to think that it's possible that maybe Herschend thinks that these rides are obsolete and that you know that Blazing Fury might be next. But I'd like to think that's not
Yeah,
true.
I love Blazing Fury too. I mean, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, yeah. I just ugh. Let's not talk about this anymore. Get out to Silver Dollar City, Branson, Missouri, ride Fire in the Hole, and ride Time Trailer for me. And they got an RMC out there, so definitely hit that up. Tons to do. There's like a cave under the park too. That's why it's my bucket list park. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So next item. So happy news this time. Serengeti Flyer at Busch Gardens, Tampa, finally has an open date of February 27th. So Serengeti Flyer is one of those SNS Scream and Swings. They have those at several parks. That is one of my favorite flat rides that I really wish that my home park would eventually get. I think they're super fun. I think the taller the better. Have you been on one of these, Don?
I have, and you're right. Super fun, thrilling. I liked how, it is a flat ride as you described it. And what I like about it is not everybody that goes to a park is going to be a roller coaster fan. So this allows you to experience those high adrenaline thrills without being on a roller coaster. So I think it's a great addition to the park. I think guests visiting Busch Gardens Tampa, they're going to love it.
Yeah, I completely agree. The one at Busch Gardens Williamsburg is very good, and it
Hmm.
goes over kind of a ravine, so that's really kind of cool. Um, there's the one at Cedar Point is particularly tall, so I think the one at San Antonio, SeaWorld San Antonio might be the tallest now, though. And then the one at Dollywood is like early flight themed, and I think that's super cool too. But those rides are so fun, and they make the most like horrible like noises because they use
Yeah,
compressed air, and I think that's part of the fun because it freaks out people that it's so industrial. We talked about steampunk
yeah,
earlier.
and yeah, and as I mentioned, just a great way to enjoy thrills without getting on a roller coaster if you're not a roller coaster fan.
Absolutely. Okay. Cool. Cool. All right. So number three.
N-
So
Yeah, next one.
oh
This is
oh
for
yeah.
you, Ryan. Yeah, Mayor Jeff Cheney. He's from Texas. Posted a Q&A about the new planned Texas Universal Park that we were just talking about.
I
Thoughts on
have
that?
thoughts on that. So, I was looking at his like the fact sheet that he kind of put out. A lot of people have seemed to have been kind of concerned with the traffic, which is always going to be the concern with this kind of stuff. Um, but he claims that the traffic won't be that bad. But this is the information that we actually have from the article. Um, it's going to be 97 acres.
Yeah.
97 acres is as big as the Warren Sports Complex, which I assume is some sort of local sports complex. Uh, it's gonna have a 300-room hotel. It's gonna have, remaining acreage available for expansion dedicated to parking and as well as potential expansion, which is that second gate that I was predicting. Um,
Hmm.
it's a quarter the size of the traditional Universal Park, a quarter the size of Hollywood, and a quarter the size of the Orlando Park. Now, I haven't been to, Orlando or I'm sorry, Universal Hollywood, but I understand that it's kind of a smaller park, right?
Yeah, smaller.
Okay.
Yeah, not as immersive as the one in
Right.
Orlando.
Okay. So, but he's saying also that the target audience is children between 3 and 9 years old. So that's once again setting the proper expectations as to what they're going to offer it. It's a new universal concept, one of a kind theme park, immersive lands. They do not know what characters are going to be there at this time. Park will not open any earlier than 8 and close any later than 9. Deed also allows for 20 special events annually with closing hours no later than 10 p.m. Anticipated hours 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. weekdays, 10 a.m. to 7 weekends. And then a bunch of stuff about the zoning oh, anticipated attendance. Weekdays, 7,500 visitors. Weekends, well, Saturdays, 20,000 visitors. That is setting the bar pretty low, if you ask me, for a Universal Park.
Yeah, yeah, but it takes time to build it up
Yeah,
too.
the author of this article noticed that these are people, not vehicles, and it does not include employees. They average 3.2 people per car. How do you fit 2.2 people in a car, Don? In the trunk?
I don't know. No, but it seems like, the mayor there is very much in favor of this project and, thinks it's going to be a great addition to that part of
Yeah,
Texas.
yeah. I mean, I agree, and in the defense of the people, you and I would, if they were going to build a theme park, in northern Kentucky or in Fairfield, Ohio, or wherever, we'd be thrilled. But the average person would be like, "What?" Because they kind of had a bombshell dropped on them. So the mayor is right to address these concerns, especially with traffic.
Yeah, I mean, it does raise a lot of questions if you're, in that neighborhood, around there that you are gonna worry, is this gonna, impact my commute to work and things like that. So yeah, but I think it's great that, he had this Q&A and addressed a lot of people's concerns.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we don't have a target opening date for that. I think I mean, I imagine it'll be no less than 5 years from now. But very exciting news out of Texas as always. We will continue to discuss that up to and including when it opens. All right.
All right. Well, Ryan Sesame Place announced new attractions. What are they and what are your thoughts on
Why do you
them?
always go to me about Sesame Street questions, Don?
I think it's just closer to your, you're closer to having watched Sesame
That's
Street.
true.
Let's
You
just
did
go
call
that
me
way
a
with it.
curmudgeon a couple weeks ago, and I'm still angry about that.
I did.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, so Sesame Place, this is the one in the Philadelphia area. It's got some new attractions
Philadelphia, yeah.
coming. Bert and Ernie's Splashy Shores, which is an all-new water play adventure. Big Bird's Beach, which is a tropical oasis. It's a new tropical themed land where the vibes are chill and your furry and feathered friends are ready for splashy water fun. That's going to replace Twiddlebug Land. And then Welcome to the Party is going to be hosted by Elmo, Abby, Grover, Rosetta, and Cookie Monster. I might have mispronounced a couple of those. They're going to have a party. It's going to be a dance party. That always goes over so well with the kids. The dance parties. Um,
Oh, yeah, they love it.
yeah, they do. Sorry. Small talk with Big Bird's going to be a photo op. So let me ask you this. So Sesame Place, from all accounts that I've heard, is very cool, for little kids.
Yeah.
Um, these splash zones, though, splash zones outside of water parks, as an adult that has raised a child, what are your thoughts on that? Because I always thought that that would be like, I would hate any park. Oh, the kids want to play in the water and get soaked and they're not in their bathing suit. What's your experience with that?
When my daughter would, go through those, splash zones and that, it's a time of her life. She was just having a great time, I get it. I think it's great for the kids to have that opportunity to just, have fun. That's all it's about is have fun. And as for myself, I didn't always like being drug into it sometimes where I had to go through them with her. But for her, I mean, it was just a big thrill. So yeah, I think it's great, to have something like this for kids and they enjoy it and they don't ever want to get out. That's the other thing. They want to just stay there all day. So I will say that in advance if your kid has not gone through, and they're young, and I'm talking the, 5 to 9 years old, 10 years old, if they have not, been through one of those splash zones and that, good luck trying to get them to
Yeah,
leave.
I completely agree. No, let me anecdotally tell you this. I went to SeaWorld during IAPA week, and I had not been to their renovated SeaWorld section, or Sesame Street section, sorry. I've been to SeaWorld section before. Um, so I checked it out, and I'll tell you this. The area, this is SeaWorld Orlando. The area is beautiful. It really legitimately looks like Sesame Street as you would remember it as a kid. But one thing I did notice is that most of it is photo ops, and, one of the things is that you can take your picture in Big Bird's nest. Um, I remember thinking that if I was a kid, I wouldn't understand, first of all, why I'm in Big Bird's nest and people are taking pictures of me, and secondly, where's Big Bird? And thirdly, why isn't he in his
Right.
nest? Like, I think that the thought process is I think that as a nostalgic adult who remembers seeing this, there's probably more value to it than it is to a kid that's like, "Oh my god, we're on Sesame Street. Oh yeah, photos inside, great." I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I mean, yeah, I can see where you're coming from with that. That it is kind of odd if you're in this big nest, but you don't see Big Bird. So yeah, I
Yeah, I mean,
agree.
it's definitely something that was designed by adults for kids. But, with that being said, the area was just mind-blowingly beautiful and just incredibly accurate to the way that I remember it in the, 60 or 70 years ago that I was watching Sesame Street, when I was 17.
Yeah. All right, Ryan, number 5 on our pick six. Super Nintendo World is set to officially open on Friday. Are you
Don,
excited?
you talk about bucket lists. I grew up playing Super Mario Brothers 3, and I I haven't been out to California yet, but I'm actually planning a short-term trip, like, in the next 2 months to make it out there very specifically to, visit Super Nintendo World. The photos that I've seen have been incredible. If you guys or any of you guys are Nintendo Switch owners, they've obviously modernized the characters so they're more cartoony than they are pixelated. And it does such a great job of representing what the games look like nowadays. They've got the Mario Kart ride open. There's going to be more at Epic Universe from what I understand, but the one in California is just going to have the Mario Kart ride. And couple friends of mine went there and they were lucky enough to they did a dry run opening that was unannounced and got to ride it, and they said they had never seen technology like that. Uh, I I'm so excited about that. Did you ever play Nintendo, Don?
I did. I did. So yeah, I'm excited about it too. So I think it's it's going to be really well done.
It's gonna be, next level stuff. I mean, let's be honest here. I don't wanna dwell on it too much because I got a feeling we're gonna be talking about this quite a bit over the course of the next year or so. But with that being said, we can't play down just how massive this is and how exciting it is just for anybody that's into either video games or theme parks.
Yeah, and once you go out there, Ryan, the next episode when you come back that we'll do, we will certainly focus on kind of a trip report from you on what the experience was like.
Absolutely, I'll catch photos and video for our social media and so on.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, the final one, number 6, Disney World and Disneyland. They're going to make major changes with the annual um, passes for the parks and the reservation system. So, Ryan, your
So,
thoughts?
badly needed. See, I'm kind of on the fence about the reservation system when it comes to Disney World, at least, because on one hand, people do have some issues getting reservations. They say that the capacity is capped to 80% or down 20% of what it was
Hmm.
before they would just close the gates. But on that same token, though, um, it still gets packed. So, part of me says, like, "No, get rid of the reservations, hopefully we're past the COVID thing now, so, you don't have to do that." But the other part of me says, "This is only gonna get worse." What a conundrum. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely a situation where it can get worse. There's always a lot of tinkering lately, with the Disney parks and what they're doing with the different, the past programs, the past perks, the reservation systems. But what I do like about it is, they are trying to make adjustments and trying to make it better. But we'll see if that's what happens.
Yeah, I completely agree. Because it would be very easy to rubber either way. Either knowing the fact that you're Disney, you're the premier park, people are going to come to you no matter what, so you're going to take this and you're going to run with it no matter what. Which ultimately will bite you once people have a little less money and they have to start making decisions. That's going to hurt a lot. But on the other hand, it's we're Disney, we're magical, give you whatever you want. You can't do that either. So good luck, Disney. I'm
Yeah, one of the things I saw as a plus that was recently announced was, if you don't have a reservation now for the pass holders, you're going to be able to get in after 2 o'clock.
Yes, and I think that that's pretty fair. I I'm a as somebody that is a pass holder, not of Disney, but like in general, I think that the product that they sell you should be what's advertised. So when it's kind of like, here's the pass, it's good for every operating day during the summer, and it's like, oh, we're at capacity, you can't come in. Yeah, I get it logistically, but that also doesn't sit well with me because technically I bought a ticket for that day. So I think it's justified that people are upset, that especially with how much those annual passes are. I mean, my god, they don't even sell them in Florida anymore. They had the Florida resident one, which I don't know how much it was, but it was more than like $800. And to say like, you
Yeah.
can't come, you can only come next Friday. No, I'm coming every day, dude. you know so I don't know.
Yeah, that's the idea of a season pass or an annual pass, is to be able to come and go when you want to, and that's not always been the case out there lately. So at least like we said, they're trying some different things, making some adjustments, and we'll see what the impact there is.
Yeah, awesome. Cool, man. Don, this was a fun one. I like this user special. We should do this every couple months.
Yeah, and you know what I think, we've talked about it too, but I think we're getting to that point to where we can maybe do a live one and take those questions as we're doing the podcast. I think that would be a fun way to go. I mean, we don't know what we're going to get, but I think we're at that point where we can look to try that someday. But if you have any ideas, suggestions, maybe some topics that you want to have Ryan and I discuss here on the Attractions Group podcast, you know, feel free to tweet them at us. Our handle is at attractions_GRP. And, we look forward to hearing what you have to say. Just, maybe it's a topic idea, whatever it may be. We
Yeah,
want to hear from you.
absolutely. Yeah, that's attractions_GRP. Or if you want to comment on the YouTube video or something like that, we do get a notification about that. So we'll be happy to address that. And for those of you, especially from the enthusiast community, because I know the last two episodes when we had Ace and the National Roller Coaster Museum on, we had a big influx of people that are coaster enthusiasts. We want to say that we appreciate you. We're really grateful that you're here and you're listening and so on, along with the industry people. This is an industry podcast. We mainly talk about the business end of the theme park business, but we are definitely one of you. We're definitely park lovers and roller coaster lovers and stuff. So, Don, any final words of wisdom before we let him go for the week?
Nope, this was fun. We appreciate the questions that we received. If we didn't get to yours this week, there's other opportunities that are going to be
Awesome.
coming up.
Cool. Well, we're signing off for the night, everybody. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. Good night.